It's Friday, and I'm back with the next in our Fanzine Friday series. Today we're taking a look at the Beholder, number 28. Please stick around. I'm AZ Mountaineer. This is our channel, Old School Rules, where we celebrate the community of old school gamers and grognards who like classic RPGs, miniatures, magazines, and everything that goes with it. Each week on the Fanzine Friday series, I take a fanzine from my collection off the shelf for a closer look. And today, from September of 1981, this is the new Beholder, number 28. Hope you enjoy the video. So this is the third of four Beholder fanzines that are created by Scale Designs, Nicholas Scales. Here is the cover. It's, as we said, the magazine size, sort of a slightly longer size piece of paper over in the UK than what we maybe see here in the USA. And this is from, as I said, September of 1981. Take a look at the cover. I think this is really, really cool. Cover art here. It does mention there on the cover that they're going to have an AD&D scenario by Alex Kells, Games Fair report, and all of their regular features. This cover artwork is taken from the Complete Book of Fantasy Gaming, it says, with kind permission from Patrick Stevens Limited by Lawrence Heath. So it's pretty cool. It kind of reminds me of the artwork that's in the players, AD&D First Edition Player's Handbook back in the spell section. It was a David Sutherland drawing where a wizard is looking in a spell book and then coming up behind him with some kind of creature. It looks like this creature is coming up out of a book. Cool stuff. As you can see on the right, lots of people involved here again. They have a credit section where they talk about they failed to give credit for art and for actually to give credit, I think, for some of the games that are mentioned. Their editorial, the D&D scenario, which is the Palace of Marzick Dodd. A shop review, right, where they talk about a particular gaming shop. Homicide is Painless is a poem. Preacher's Pulpit, where someone can write in and sort of write their own, like a short article. Helmenhale, Graham Staplehurst, ongoing quest to create a city scenario. The Armor's Guild, which is the ongoing look at different types of arms and armor used in historical Europe. Monster Summoning, New Monsters. Men in D&D, which is written by a woman who's talking about all these articles about women in D&D and why women play or don't play. The Electric Zygote, which has their play-by-mail information, reviews, convention information, etc. And finally, Merlin's Pantry, which comes back to us, is a new magic item article, although this one talks quite a bit about how to convert from D&D to Dragonquest. In terms of the people who participate, obviously Nicholas Scales owns the company. Simon Kirby, Graham Askey, Michael Dale, Keir Watson, Matthew Hankins, Stephen Cullis, all folks from the Aerial Servant. Helen Jago does the art, and they say here that she did the art for covers of 26 and 27 as well. Chris Hatt, Alan Johnson, Colin Johnson, Alex Kells, L. Gittens, Ashley Bedford, Alison Brooks, Matthew Eveleigh, Dave Davies, John Crook, Robin Aitken, Lawrence Heath, Graham Staplehurst, and Alex Self. Okay, let's look at the credits in the editorial. So Simon Kirby here wants to make sure we, again, give credit to people. He mentions the artwork on the covers that they'd failed to give credit for. It says the furry, which was in issue 26, the idea and the artwork came to them from Matthew Eveleigh. And then also they mentioned interior artwork here has been by Helen Jago, who normally initialed it, Richard Knight, Ashley Redford. I've put some artwork in as well. In terms of his editorial, Nick Scales talks just a little bit about what is going on, talks about a little bit about his trip to a games fair, but says obviously there'll be an article talk more about that in depth, and then gives some information responding to his reader responses to the questionnaire. A few of these I thought were interesting. So what did you like in the new Beholder? They've got the Adventure, Preacher's Pulpit, New Monsters, and on down the list, ending finally with the FIR Comic. What magazines you liked? And here we see the Dragon coming out in number 1. Oftentimes in the UK it does not. The Dragon, the Stormlord, the Wanderer, a couple of fanzines there, White Dwarf, and then another fanzine called Dragon Lords. And finally the game system that people liked. AD&D, and D&D, Traveler, Dragonquest, RuneQuest, Top Secret, and Gamma World. And he also asked a question like, do you want to see some of the not most popular games in here? And he said the general consensus was only if you're going to add extra pages to include that content. Do not have less, for example, D&D material in order to cover something for, say, Top Secret or Gamma World. Here's our adventure. It's the Palace of Marzick Dodd, and once again we have an adventure based on a wizard who sort of built a stronghold, and you're going there to kind of infiltrate it. It's built up. There's a big chasm. There's a big mountain that's sort of built up into. He's got this giant gate, and so you're going to come in the main entrance down here at the south and try to make your way to the north. It's, obviously pretty straightforward. It's just an exploration dungeon. There's a little trick here, which is that there's a second floor where this magic user, who's actually an illusionist, has his private quarters, and he has small holes drilled through the floor so he can kind of keep track of you. He can cast spells down into the first floor and try and delay or get rid of the party. It's pretty good. It all hangs together. It's coherent. The one thing I note from an article in the last one is he doesn't really have any escape, secret door where he could basically get out and get away here. He's got to fight his way through the party if they find their way up to his second floor. The shop review this time is called Ultimate Thule, and it's in a town called Hastings. I gather it's a beachside town because they said, hey, bring your wife and kids, let them go to the beach while you go to the gaming store, or if you're younger, bring your mom and dad, let them go to the beach and you can come over to this gaming store. He likes it a lot, says it's pretty big, and the guy who runs it is fantastic. Then we have this poem, Homicide is Painless by L. Gittens. Through early morning fog I see dragons waiting patiently, and 5 demons of type 3, all designed so fiendishly, cause homicide is painless, the DM is not famous, your life I'll take, and leave it if I please. The game of life is hard to play, for in the end your life you'll pay. Your lifeless form will someday lay, and you'll hear the DM say, that homicide is painless, the DM is not famous, your life I'll take, and leave it if I please. The sword in time will burn your skin, so feel its burn as it goes in. The effects of cure will begin, the pain goes stronger, watch me grin, for homicide is painless, the DM is not famous. Your life I'll take, or leave it if I please. A brave man once requested me to kill the party's NPC. It's Asmodeus, can't you see? And I replied, oh, why ask me? As homicide is painless, the DM is not famous. Your life I'll take or leave it, if I please, 'cause the DM rules and I'll do as I please. And there you go. The Preacher's Pulpit by Colin Johnson. And he talks about basically the approach to role-playing games, and he talks about this thing called an Irving. He says it was the Dippyzine, the diplomacy folks, came up with this name for all these youngsters who were so frenetic about D&D. And the Irving is the person who's new to the hobby and they love whatever game it is, and they just want to acquire all the knowledge and all the materials or supplements or products they can about a particular game. As he says, he's more mature. He's past that stage. He's got several different gaming systems, and what he likes to do, well, he says he plays basically D&D. He draws ideas and concepts and sort of pieces of rules from different systems and uses them as he pleases, none of which forms, rules according to any particular game historically, right? So he doesn't play pure, for example, doesn't play pure D&D. And as he says, and that's something I like it that way. And he likes it that way, and he also likes to essentially make the game fun. And what he says is, I don't look up these rules, Some of them I know, get the gist of them, and I just use the rules at my table to keep the game moving. I like fast combat. I don't like a bunch of charts. I don't like just random encounters that might not make any sense. I like all that kind of stuff to be like what will move the story forward, will be interesting and engaging for my players. So that's his philosophy. Helmenhale by Graham Staplehurst. Again, I don't think it ever comes out as a full-blown product, but it's starting to come out at least a little bit. And so here's a submission by Tom Keynes, I believe, is the author who's come up with the narrative as well as the artwork here for his little square that he's designed, which Graham said was the best thing he had received recently, and so he's going to win a prize. The Armorer's Guild by Michael Dale continues his look at arms and armor from the history of medieval Europe. And this time, the only thing he covers is the Normans, and he talks about their arms, the evolution over time, use of castles, and how that developed. New monsters with monster summoning. We have 2 this time. They're both pretty good. The Shurfga is a 5-foot-tall, evil-aligned, could be neutral, but tends towards evil-aligned winged creature. They're about 5 feet tall, black skin, sort of pointed hair, head. Here's a better picture. They like to attack from above with bows, javelins, nets, and then they've got this claw creature that will hit you from above, and the claws will then clamp, and then they can try to pick you up if they're strong enough to carry you away. They're pretty cool. They seem pretty fearsome. Clearly, they come in large numbers. I think they say here 5 to 50, and then they talk about if you get bigger groups. I'm assuming 5 to 50 is more like a hunting party or a party that's out and about, because they talk about having 100 or more of these creatures. I assume that's in a lair, or else it's a special sort of like an army on the march expedition. They like to capture humans because they like the taste of human flesh, and they like to sacrifice female humans in their rituals. And so that's the other reason they'll come in contact with you. So they're pretty nasty. Anytime you've got a creature that's able to attack from above and can fly, that's going to be a really tough thing, especially for a lower level party. The other creature here is called the Gowaz. This one makes me feel like it came from literature. It's very specific. These guys live in a tree called a Sotuga tree, and each person picks a tree that he lives in. And if the tree somehow burns down or gets cut down, he's shamed and he's kicked out of the clan because he doesn't have a tree to call his own. And once you have one, it's like that's it for your life. Now you're treeless. They've developed a couple of druidic abilities. They have control plants and transport via plant, and always to or from their base tree. And other than that, they're a 4 to 4.5 foot tall humanoid-looking creature. They can attack, with their hands, I think, and maybe a bite. Then we have this article called Men in D&D by Alison Brooks. And she talks about how all these articles are written about women, and why isn't there any article written about men. She does have a couple of opinions here about why aren't there more women involved, and this is what she shares. Women perhaps do not play war games or read science fiction and fantasy, and so they don't have that sort of base layer of interest that would attract them. Most people are introduced by their friends, and people don't tend to play as much mixed sex games, and so if it's men are playing, then they're probably inviting other men to come and play. And he says then also it can be somewhat due to the attitude of certain males, in particular the game masters of a particular gaming group, with the assumption that they either don't want women to play, that women wouldn't enjoy it, that women need to play women characters, and so some people might not like the sort of stereotypes or the expectations being put upon them, and that might cause them not to enjoy the game, especially if they both want you to be a woman and then they want to give you certain sort of stereotypical, well, because you're a woman, then, whatever it is, you're weak, or you can't be a brave fighter, or maybe you're not strong enough, or whatever, you can't play the kind of character you want to play in your fantasy campaign. So I thought that interesting perspective. There's always a lot of talk about that, the role of women, the presence of women in RPGs back in the 70s and 80s. Here is the Electric Zygote, and again, it starts off with their play-by-mail section by Davies, and he lists different games that are available. Nicholas Scales has a new game called Bellark, and he talks a little bit about the background of the world. It says it lives in perpetual daylight on this world. There was sort of this cataclysmic event that people didn't have much in terms of memory of their old society. There was just a bunch of chaos. This one leader sort of gathered a group called the Council, imposed order, built up an army, captured all the other islands around. Then he disappears, so he sort of becomes legend. And now this council sort of rules over the area. And that's the background for his play-by-mail game that he's encouraging people to join. A couple of things in here I wanted to point out. Games Day is coming up in September. They announced Fantasy Games Unlimited had shared some games with them. Aftermath Space Opera and The Land of the Rising Sun. Games Fair 82 has already, even though it just happened, has already announced its next event, dates for the next event. And then they have some reviews of a laser burn sci-fi game. Astra and Flondrix, a book by Seamus Colin, and The Land of the Rising Sun. That's an Fantasy Games Unlimited game set in feudal Japan. And I think I've heard this before. The game itself, probably you're not going to play this game, but if you ever wanted to have a game set in Japan or in a setting like sort of inspired by that, lots of good source material, ideas, and information that you might want to grab out of that game and use in whatever game you're going to play. And then finally, there's an overview by Colin Johnson of his time at Games Fair. And as he said, unlike several of the things which were mostly coming to places where people want to show you their game and sell you their game. You came to play, and this was sponsored by TSR UK. So it sort of draws on the Gen Con concept. It's for gamers who want to play games. And they said, they saw various things like Traveler, Dragonquest, of course, and then there was a highlight was an AD&D open tournament where they had rounds, and eventually there was a winner, and of course, lots of other people are around playing their own games while they're there. So they thought it was a great fun and hope that that's going to be a new tradition that'll carry forward. Then we have Merlin's Pantry. This is by Graham Staplehurst, and most of what he does here is talk about how to convert D&D magical items to use in Dragonquest, which is a game that he's enjoying. And he just talks about like every +1, it'd be a +5% because it's a percentage-based game, etc. The thing that and he goes through all the different types of things, swords, armor, potions, rings, all that kind of stuff, how to do it. But then what I thought was interesting was there's a discussion of some magic items that he was drawing from other games that he thought would be kind of interesting, and I thought I wanted to share a little discussion of those because I thought they were interesting. He's got something here, different types of staffs, and he's got like the staff of fearful black fire, of fearful brimstone, cold, fearful energy, fearful flames, fearful starfire, and then the spider staff, which is angel spider, demon spider, dragon spider, night spider, and spider lord. I don't know what those things are, but they sound pretty cool. Then he's got some gems and jewelry. He's got the comb of the mermaid, and then there'll be a spell wherever the comb lands. So I don't know what it does, but again, seems kind of interesting. The dragon's bone comb, again, like the comb of the mermaid, although it doesn't tell us exactly what that does. The glittering crystal of hypnotizing, and if you've ever read the R.A. Salvatore Drizzt novels, it sounds like he has this guy, this little halfling buddy of his, right, who has a ruby pendant that he can spin and it'll sort of mesmerize people. It's he gets sort of a famous thing in that book series. The headband of mind cloaking, the necklace of courage, the necklace of rain calling, the ruby of density, cursed, and then tungstone pendants that let you speak with enchanted creatures, avians, seabirds, aquatic mammals, animals, plants, and shadow creatures. Musical instruments, bell of the dead, harp of wind speaking, silver horn of storm raising, silver whistle of wind raising, and the whistle of the piercing note. The bag of darkness, the bag of demon's breath, bag of fog, bag of noxious vapors, bag of obscuring smokes, bag of wind. I love these bag ideas, right? You sort of open them and whatever it is, the effect comes out. Maybe it's only once, maybe it's so many times before like charges, I don't know, but it seems pretty cool. The bottle of unnameable horrors, the box of flash pellets, box of gem creation, box of vampire's teeth. It's very interested in what those would do. The cordial of frozen doom, and the golden cordial of enchanting plants, the liquid of hibernation. Again, there's several of these here. I think it's really interesting, and it's one of those things where the idea that you can find something in a different game, right? Maybe you're not going to play RuneQuest or Dragonquest or whatever it is, but those magic items can give you great ideas to use in your D&D campaign. So that's one of the reasons I really like them. Here's the FIR Comic. You mean to say you mixed up your heroism potion with your polymorph potion, and these gnolls have surrounded him, and his fighter has now become a little tiny mouse, so he's in trouble. Here's some artwork. You guys know I really like to share the artwork, so we'll just go through and look at the different things that are in here. This was in an earlier version, How to Appreciate the Opinions of Others. This guy says that's rubbish. Here's this undead creature. I really like that one. We got this horned samurai warrior, ogre warrior, whatever he is here. And then this is Kellerin from Belleric, and Belleric is Nicholas Scales, the editor's new play-by-mail game that he was going to start running. This samurai is connected to the review, Land of the Rising Sun, and this says it's a Shene from Belleric, again, the same campaign. This is more of an eagle human-looking creature. I think that one looks pretty cool. And then we've got this Cyclops here. That was just a random drawing that was in the article on new magic items. I don't know what this thing is. I like the art quite a bit. There's like a demon or devil on this thing's back, and it's maybe a dinosaur or some type of, enchanted creature. Pretty cool. This lady, I can't quite tell whether she's supposed to be an angel or a demon. But she has an angelic look, but then her wings sort of look to me like they're very demonic with the little spikes and hooks and stuff on them, rising up out of the dead from this wherever this fight had occurred. And then this just looks like a really nasty little cat, lemur-looking creature. It's just a little piece of art. Ultima Thule is the game that was mentioned in the game review this time around. And then a couple of new fanzines are advertised here. This is Thunderstruck, which was about to have its first issue, and Stormlord, which already existed at this point. But the picture of the cover here is number one. Both of these advertising in the Beholder. And then we have this book, The Complete Book of Fantasy Wargaming. It's pretty well known in sort of older circles. This guy wrote this great big book, 222 pages, with his idea of a better sense of rules, I guess. Nicholas has an advertising page for his own product, the Standing Stones. And then in the front, we have Games of Liverpool in the back as Deviant Games. They've been the advertisers on the front and back of this fanzine from the very beginning. And we have the Model Workshop and the Games Unlimited catalog advertisement, just like we have before. That's our look at the New Beholder number 28 from September of 1981. Hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope you're enjoying this series, and I hope you're subscribed. If you have friends who might enjoy this content, please send them our way. We're getting very close to our 1,000 subscriber goal. Hope you have a great Friday, have a great weekend, and until next time, my friends, keep rolling 20s.